Majora's Mask, Chapter 51, Gyorg. Tattle was thankful she could fly. The cramped, narrow hallway was nothing but a grated bridge with a raging river beneath it. The masked salesman's robes were wet from water splashing up against the walls, and Link was in danger of slipping in those boots.
As he always is,
the fairy thought with irritation. Wings kept her blessedly warm and dry. The armory's door closed behind them, and Tattle watched as their new cloaked companion strode to the door across the bridge. His spidery fingers began opening the way forward, but the young hero did not follow him. Instead, he stared off at the water below.
Link?
She asked. I don't think we should go that way, he said, pointing to the masked salesman's door. If we backtrack, we'll just end up at a dead end where the water shot us out. Tattle raised an eyebrow.
Then what's our other option? Are you saying we're trapped here?
We could dive under the bridge, the masked salesman said. When you and I were Zora swimming under there, we passed a few other hallways. Maybe one of them leads around back to the entrance. And I've got ice arrows now, Link said. So I could freeze that waterfall covering the ladder in the big room. Tattle considered, but another thought suddenly occurred to her.
Wait a second. When you were Evan, was everything you said about the temple a lie?
The masked salesman kept a neutral expression, as if straining to remember what he'd said. Tattle reminded him.
Evan said he'd been here 3 times to pay homage to the gods. But it was really you. Lying. You acted like all of this was a trial and that you knew where to go. Was any of that true?
Yes, he said eventually. All of it was. I gathered the information from Evan's mind.
Tattle
stammered.
Stealing other people's faces isn't enough for you? You rifle through their minds, too?
The masked salesman scoffed. He wanted to share his life with me. In my experience, it brings dying people peace when they can share their whole lives. Tattle balked.
Their whole lives? In your experience? Are you telling me you make it a habit to collect faces and memories from all your victims?
As the masked salesman bristled, Link stepped in. Tattle, what are you doing? I thought you wanted him to join us.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I'm granting him immunity for my interrogations,
Tattle said.
So how do you do it? Is it invasive to extract a person's entire life for your perusal?
The masked salesman startled Tattle by pulling out a mask instantly.
He knows exactly where they are,
she realized. During the wart battle, he'd retrieved each one in a split second. The man was not only magically gifted, but he had all the guile and dexterity of a master thief. I did it with this, he said. The mask had red markings and a golden eye in its center, all set against a white background. The crimson lines formed a mouth in a jester's smile, and the single eye drew Tattle in. There was something alluring about its piercing gaze. She felt the presence of a needle in her mind, pushing itself slowly through the center. It didn't hurt, but the mask was invading her thoughts. Suddenly, she stood with Tail, the Skull Kid, and a creature with a drawn hood. Tail trembled terribly beside her. Tattle tried to be brave, even as she braced herself for a threat.
But my fairies know too much now,
the Skull Kid said. He floated between the underground room's 2 torches. The ceiling stretched into darkness above them.
They heard you say that. The whole thing.
The cloaked creature revealed its face, rotted and decaying.
That is of no concern,
the entity said. It used the words of men, but was decidedly not a man. It reached into its cloak to retrieve some profane weapon.
They won't remember a thing.
Then, the vision ended. Tattle shook her head as the sound of rushing water returned. The masked salesman stood before her again, and Link did too. The golden-eyed mask was gone, and Tattle was way closer to the sorcerer now. She backed away, alarmed that the strange mask had completely hypnotized her.
What was that?
She said. Sorry, the sorcerer said, lowering his face in apology. I forget.
I've seen that mask before,
Tattle said. The masked salesman didn't react, but for the first time, Tattle noticed immense effort in his eyes and mouth. They'd called him out on several lies these past few minutes, and each time, the sorcerer restrained himself from reacting.
So that he can stay in control of at least something,
the fairy realized.
Even if it's just his face. What else do you have in your robes?
Tattle asked. She dropped all levity from her voice because yet again, this man had conjured a primal feeling in her stomach. Fear.
I don't like that you still have so many secrets. You could kill us right now if you wanted, couldn't you? Before either Link or I could blink.
This new version of the masked salesman, as always, kept his cool. That mask is by far the most powerful, even more so than the reeded mask. It is the mask of truth. It lets me read another's thoughts, but if I choose, I can do more. Like with Evan, I relived his entire life in but a moment. He passed decades of living onto me in only seconds. Tattle's blood ran ice cold.
You altered my mind before, didn't you?
She realized what her vision had been. An erased memory. She'd been in the room with the Deku flower under the clock tower, where Link had been turned into a Deku scrub, and the re-dead masked sorcerer had been there too.
At the very beginning,
the fairy thought.
And we never knew.
Altered is a strong word, the masked salesman said, wincing. I erased a memory of yours and created a false one, but not just for you. I did it to you, Tail, and... He gestured to Link. You as well. I fabricated a horse chase and the encounter with the Skull Kid in the forest. Tattle's mouth fell open. There it was, all laid before them, the explanation for Link's erased memories. For once, the fairy was speechless. But Link was not. Malice fell upon his face again, as unyielding as stone. You, he said, stammering. You didn't just kill Zelda, did you? You made me forget she died. Panic flew across the masked salesman's face. No, he said. I never meant to erase that. It was an accident. The fairies' minds were easier to manipulate since they're shadows, but yours, when I entered your mind, I felt nothing but grief. It was an overwhelming cloud that wouldn't let me through. I tried to navigate around it, but...
Stop!
Tattle said.
I know you're trying out honesty for the first time in your life, but I swear to Nehru, I will push you into the water if you don't shut up!
The masked salesman obeyed. He looked helpless now, as if afraid he'd done something irreparable. Link stepped away from them, taking a deep breath as he suppressed his own anger.
Is this what it's going to be like from now on?
The fairy wondered.
Non-stop tension and anger?
She feared there was no alternative if the masked salesman's crimes were so vast. Finally, Link rejoined them. Did you kill Evan? He asked. Did you read his mind? Learn his entire life and then kill him to use his body? No more than you killed Mikau, the masked salesman dared to say. He was already dying when I found him. He was floating in the Pirate's Cove on the third day. I read his mind and then healed him. I knew you'd come to Great Bay eventually, so I needed a disguise. You'd have rejected me outright otherwise. When you played the Song of Time, I brought Evan's mask back with me into the next cycle. But if you found Evan on the third day, then shouldn't he have been walking around Zora Hall after we reset things? Link asked. There can't be two Evans at once. There weren't, he said quickly. Mikao left for the Pirates' Fortress a day before this cycle began, and Evan eventually followed him on that same day. They're both captives in the fortress by the dawn of the first day. They throw Mikao out first, and then Evan by the third day. Link still seemed skeptical, so the sorcerer continued. I'm the only reason you found Mikao. His body didn't float to the beach, right at the entrance, all on his own. I knew you'd need a disguise too, and given what you've done in the previous regions, well... Link's face became stone again, and Tattle pursed her lips.
Oh, you stepped in it again,
she thought.
You're taking this truthfulness thing a little too far.
Without a monster to fight altogether, there was nothing but eggshells. Their party was now a bomb waiting to explode. Link shook his head and turned to the water again. Let's just go, he said. Are you sure? The mask salesman asked. Yes. Put on Evan's mask and let's find a way back to the main room. Link paused. After you tell us about every single mask in your robes and what they do. The mask salesman paused before answering. You've already seen the Dodongo one, the Cyclone one, and the... He turned to Tattle before he said it. Blast mask. You know about Evan and the Mask of Truth, too. There's also the stone mask you've seen me use before, so I can camouflage myself. And the last one really isn't... Fine, Link said, ending the conversation. Let's just both turn into Zoras and keep going. I'm only telling the truth, the mask salesman said. I promise. I'm not holding anything back. I don't really want to talk to you anymore, Link said sharply. We have a job to do, so let's do it. Tattle held back another retort.
You still won't tell us your name,
she thought.
And I don't understand why anyone would be so secretive about that.
Link brought out a bottle, and Tattle reluctantly eyed its casing.
Again?
She said. I'm sorry, Link said. It'll be over quickly. Tattle sighed as she flew inside.
Here I go, back to being fake dead for a couple of minutes.
We're just going to jump into the stream under here, Link said. We'll take another hallway and be back in the chamber before you even know it. Tattle eyed both men uncertainly.
How in the name of Den is my life suddenly in the hands of an evil psychopath and a 12-year-old boy?
She thought. She watched as the mask salesman put on his mask and turned into Evan. Her stomach lurched.
That feels so weird now.
Just then, Link's possession of 3 dead souls' bodies unsettled her more than ever before. Tattle?
Yeah, I'm coming.
She squeezed herself into the bottle, and Link placed it back into his bag. She couldn't see anything but her fellow passengers, a jumble of arrows, weapons, and masks. The blue and red gems glowed fiercely on Link's newest prize. Her breathing grew heavy as Link's hand reached in to grab the Zora mask next.
It's going to be okay,
she told herself.
It's just like going to sleep.
She waited, but nothing happened. Tattle could faintly hear the running water and Link's muffled voice.
Why are they taking so long?
She thought.
I'd rather get this over with and...
Her eyes shot open, but she never remembered closing them. The fairy tried blinking the sudden heaviness from her eyes. Tattle's thoughts suddenly had the consistency of curdled milk. She moaned. Each flap of her wings took tremendous effort.
It happened.
Whatever it was, she'd been subjected to the most horrendous, restless sleep imaginable, and it seemed way worse this time. Link grabbed the bottle and pulled it out of the bag. Tattle flew out slowly, struggling to take in the temple's light. They were in the massive room where they'd started their journey. The metal fins churned the vast well below them, and Link must have just climbed out of the water onto the bridge. Tattle blinked sheepishly again, noticing that Link still had pink stains on his tunic from the wart. Evan stood behind him, removing his mask to become the sorcerer again.
Ugh.
She thought. "Are you okay?" Link asked. He didn't sound as strained or angry as he had a few seconds ago.
A few seconds for me,
she realized. She wondered how much time had passed.
Oh, now you care?
She said bitterly. The boy winced, and the masked salesman seemed taken back too.
Sorry. How long was I out for?
A couple of hours, Link said. Tuttle balked.
Excuse me?
The tunnels led into some underwater rooms with puzzles, so it took a while to get back here.
We agreed to only a few minutes,
Tuttle said, her panic rising. Her sluggishness was slower to fade, and she feared she may be cursed that way forever now.
What if you'd gotten killed and then I was stuck there forever?
I'm sorry, Link said. There wasn't anything too dangerous, just more seaweed arms and skeletal fish, but there were a lot of underwater rooms, and we didn't want to keep bringing you in and out of your sleep. Tuttle sighed.
Whatever, it's done now. Hopefully I'll be back to normal soon.
Link struggled to find another way to apologize, but the masked salesman interrupted him. We should move on, he said. Time is not on our side.
Agreed,
Tattle said.
Let's leave this awful place so we'll only have one more temple left.
As they walked across the bridge to the new area, the metal fence turned below them. She flew beside the masked salesman for a moment, but he refused to make eye contact with her.
I wonder what they talked about,
she thought. Hopefully, there'd been no more painful truths. Killing monsters came easier to them.
That's the one hobby everyone here has in common.
Friendships had been built on less. Link led the way until they reached the other side's metal ladder. It led up to a new door, but a heavy waterfall still poured over the rungs to impede their progress. The boy smiled as he drew his new dark bow. He pressed a fresh arrow's feathers against the string and pulled it back, aiming at the ceiling's waterhole. The tip of Link's arrow glowed bright red with fire, and then a chilly white with ice.
Show off,
Tuttle thought. The arrow found its target, hitting the opening and freezing it over. The crackling ice sealed itself over the waterfall, preventing a single drop from seeping through. The metal ladder was now free, albeit still dangerously wet. Impressive, the masked salesman said. Tattle shot an inquisitive look his way as Link climbed the ladder.
Is ice magic beyond your power?
The sorcerer smiled. No.
Right,
she said.
You would have made Woodfall and Snowhead so much easier if you'd retired from villainous monologuing a little earlier.
Brevity's never been my strong suit, the masked salesman said, frowning as he followed Link up the ladder. Which maybe is a good thing, or else Link might have lost our clock tower encounter. I said a few too many things and ruined everything.
You?
The fairy said sarcastically.
Saying too much and ruining everything? I find that hard to imagine.
The sorcerer glared down at her, but she merely flew past him to rejoin Link. The ladder led to a much grander door than any before. It was heavy and glowed a deep blue, resonating powerfully before them. It dwarfed the three adventurers, promising something important on its other side.
Impeding doom,
Tattle thought, still blinking away her exhaustion. Is this it? The masked salesman said. Evan never went through here, so I don't have a memory of the other side. Link walked up to the door and pressed it inward like all the others, but he struggled with its weight. Unfortunately for them all, Darmani was currently healing, so the Goron mask's muscles were not an option. So, the masked salesman helped instead, and together, they pushed the immense door inward and lifted it. The two men had been mortal enemies just a day ago, and yet now, the fairy witnessed them working as one to enter the room beyond. It was dark and dank, like all the others. Link, Tattle, and the masked salesman walked inside, but the door did not close behind them.
That's a first,
the fairy thought. It was small and completely empty. A gaping hole took up most of the room's floor, directly in the center. Link and the masked salesman approached it tentatively, and Tattle went to have a look herself. The fall was long, really long. The floor below the hole was a distant blimp, and a torn ladder only had a few useless rungs before it twisted uselessly into pieces. The distant room had a blue glow. It seemed much larger than this one.
How do we plan on getting down there?
Tattle asked. My Goron ball could do it, Link said. So could my cyclone mask, the masked salesman added. It's helped me survive long falls before. They all stared skeptically at the wide metal chasm and the great fall separating them from the room below. The ruined, twisted ladder infuriated Tattle. She wondered what could be down there to warrant such an immense chasm. The monster will be down there, won't it? The masked salesman asked. The one that sealed Great Bay's giant away? Tattle was surprised to hear uneasiness in his voice.
For once, we know more about something than he does,
she thought. Yes, Link said. I can't say I really have a strategy, though. I survived Woodfall and Snowhead's battles mostly on instinct. He paused. Together, I bet we'll stand a better chance. The masked salesman smiled, and Tattle did too. It wasn't quite forgiveness, nowhere close to it actually, but a willingness to work together was exactly what the fairy had hoped for.
Despite how bad he is at trying to be honest,
Tattle thought. Yes, the masked salesman said. Together. Maybe one more battle is just what we need to. The sound of an arrow piercing flesh interrupted him. Link jolted in surprise. The masked salesman's lips quivered, and he looked down to see a bloody arrowhead protruding from his chest. His hands went to the sharp point that had torn through his dark robes. Already, the black fabric became wet and heavy with blood. The sorcerer stumbled forward while his face contorted in pain. No! Link screamed, but his hand shot out too late. The masked salesman tumbled into the hole. His body spiraled to the glowing blue platform far below them. Shock flooded Link's veins as he heard a bowstring being pulled taut behind him. The hero instinctively raised his shield, and the second arrow clinked harmlessly against its metal surface. Link found the pirate leader crouched at the doorway's entrance. Her clothes were torn, and she was bruised, bloody, and out of breath. Her bandage was gone. The grievous wound Link had left festered on her abdomen. The pirate, despite waiting on death's door, dutifully prepared a third arrow. That one hit Link's shield too, and then the boy crossed the room, drew his sword, and stabbed her in the heart. There was no chance for last words, but she met Link's cold, icy gaze with joy. I took something from you, the pirate's smile said. I got my revenge. Then she fell slack against the wall. The ghost of a smile clung to her blood-stained lips. Link tossed her corpse to the floor and exchanged a glance with Tattle. His fairy could only stare back in horror. The boy applied his Goron mask, turned into a weakened Darmani, and dove into the hole without a word. Tattle remained floating at the abyss's edge, staring at the pirate leader's body. Her dead smile sent a shiver up the fairy's spine. Darmani's rocky back broke its fall. Link almost fainted when he unraveled himself. His Goron body's infection was not all the way past, even as the potion went to work, so he removed his mask and ran to the sorcerer's side as a human. The vast chamber was simple, a blank, glowing blue platform surrounded by water. There was no way in or out, except through the hole on the distant ceiling. The moat surrounding the stage seemed deep. No obvious reason for the chamber's size presented itself, yet. The masked salesman lay face down, but his body didn't appear broken by the fall. Link bent down and rolled him over. The sorcerer's face was hidden behind the cyclone mask, which likely had saved him. The red-haired man removed the visage to reveal a pain-stricken face. Someone shot me. A pirate from the fortress, Link said. He eyed the dark pool of blood spreading on the sorcerer's robes. She must have followed me here, but she's dead now. The masked salesman glanced at the arrowhead himself. His usually controlled expression was wild with panic. Link, you have to pull it out, he said. It'll get infected.
If I pull that out, you'll bleed to death.
No, I won't, the masked salesman said, still trembling as he pulled out a vial of blue potion.
Right,
Link said. He tore part of the ruined cloak away and realized something was within a hidden pocket.
Masks.
He pulled the blast and Dodongo masks free, discovering a hole in the center of each. The masked salesman's expression told Link they would no longer work. He tossed the trash aside and looked at the arrow wound. Link's face darkened. What? The sorcerer asked. The black scar had already begun spreading into the new injury. It had taken advantage of his weakened state within minutes.
The dark magic, Link said. It's getting worse.
The sorcerer's brow furrowed. Because of the arrow?
Yeah.
The thin black web on the masked salesman's chest had thickened, spilling into the blood and torn flesh surrounding the arrowhead.
Are you sure you want me to pull it out?
A low grumbling answered them. Link looked up to see a nearby pocket of water begin to bubble.
Yes!
The masked salesman exclaimed.
Do it fast!
The hero steeled himself, turning to the masked salesman onto his side and grabbing the arrow's other end. He pulled. The masked salesman screamed, and more blood instantly ran free. It soaked his already wet robes and spilled onto the platform. Link watched as the sorcerer's face paled and the dark scar grew even worse, seeping into the newly opened flesh as if it were a prize. Link opened the vial and poured all of the blue potion inside. The sorcerer screamed again as his skin tried to mend itself, but it met resistance.
The scar,
he realized. Where the dark magic had thickened, the flesh faltered. Barely any of his injury responded to the potion, contorting instead into a grim mockery of healing. The wound remained open, filled with darkness and spilling blood. No, Link said breathlessly. The masked salesman's face grew whiter. The mask, he said, stammering. Pain laced every word. The mask.
What?
I need the all-night mask.
Link!
This final exclamation came from Tattle, and it was swiftly followed by a loud splash. Link looked up to see his fairy nearby a beast, risen from the water. The monster was a fish, but it was one of the largest sea creatures he'd ever seen. 2 spikes protruded from its head, and its scales were jagged. The accompanying fins were serrated too, promising a lethal wound no matter where someone touched it. The purple-scaled, green-eyed creature had leapt from the water, soaring above the platform and opening its mouth to greet them. Each tooth was a sword wielded to impale them. Link grabbed the masked salesman and rolled away from the monster while it roared. The sorcerer screamed again, but thankfully the gargantuan fish barely missed them. Its sharp tail waved behind as it glided across the platform and landed back in the water. The hero's fallen ally gritted his teeth. Gyorg, he said, though his voice was barely a whisper. The monster of Great Bay Temple. Tattle flew to join them.
Oh, Nehru,
she said. The masked salesman's critical condition was immediately obvious to her. Link returned to the dying masked salesman.
The all-night mask,
he said.
Where is it? Will it save you?
The hero looked to see if the blast, Dodongo, and cyclone masks were nearby, but they were gone. Gyorg had swept them away. The sorcerer retrieved one of his 4 remaining masks himself. It was dark gray, nearly black, and it was grated where the mouth and nose should be. 2 terrible red eyes shone on it, wide and crazed.
It's terrifying,
Link thought.
What does it do?
He asked. The masked salesman put it over his face before answering. It prevents me from sleeping or dying, he said, barely summoning the air to speak. As long as I'm wearing this mask, my mind won't go to sleep. No matter what happens to my body, even if it stops working, I can't die. Link decided this mask's design was appropriate for its purpose then. Even as the blood pooled around the sorcerer at an alarming rate, it seemed his mind would remain tethered to this world. Water bubbled beside them again.
It's coming back!
Tattle said. Link braced himself as Gyorg rose from the water again, its mouth wide for another try. This time, it glided closer to the platform's edge, lowering its high arc. Link pushed the masked salesman away, drew his sword, and sidestepped the beast. As it passed, he swung his gilded blade in for a kill. Instead, it got stuck in Gyorg's hard, spiky scales, and Link was pulled along with his sword. He barely held on, and then Gyorg tossed him and his sword away. Link spun until he landed in the water with a cold, chilling crash. Underwater, Link couldn't see much, save for the column which was a platform on the surface. Sand surrounded it, alongside deceptive green arms that swayed like seaweed. Link stopped himself from drifting too far by putting on his Zora mask. As Mikau, his awkward human limbs became honed for underwater combat. Just in time, a pair of green eyes heralded Gyorg's next attempt to eat him. Link zipped beneath the monster like an arrow, effortlessly swimming out of the way. He used his momentum to swim up and break the water's surface. Link rolled onto the platform, dripping wet as he came to a stop. The first thing he found was a trail of blood leading up to the masked salesman. The pale, injured man had moved, shakily trying to get to his knees. The all-night mask hid his face's agony well, though Tattle was clearly distraught as she floated beside him. His fairy said nothing as Link rejoined them. She'd been stunned into silence. So much had happened all at once. The masked salesman had been shot, a Veil had been brutally killed. They'd fallen down the hole, and Gyorg had immediately appeared to eat them. Link turned to the masked salesman instead, who'd managed to get to his knees.
What are you doing? You need to lay down or...
A long, wriggling green arm came around the platform's side and grabbed Link's waist. It picked him up, immediately twirling him in circles like a rag doll. His vision swam while he grew nauseous, and then the arm abruptly zipped down to pull him underwater. Link got one fleeting glimpse of the platform. More green arms had extended themselves toward Tattle and the masked salesman, and water bubbled nearby, promising another attack from Gyorg.
No!
He exclaimed. Water crashed around him as the arm pulled him into darkness, and Link never saw if his allies lived or died. Instead, he saw a seabed littered with shorter green arms wriggling with glee at his arrival. The longer one kept itself taut around his waist, pulling him closer toward the colony of monsters. As a Zora, air was not a concern, but the beast still fought against Mikau's fins and wriggling body. Link savagely tried to tear himself away, but it was no use. He caught a glint of gold in the sand nearby. His sword, discarded by Gyorg, but it was too far away. Eventually, the long arm overpowered him, and Link had no more strength to resist. It pulled him swiftly toward its brethren, and the hero braced himself to be ripped to shreds. Then, another flash of gold appeared, right by his face. The gilded sword sliced through several green arms at once, and Link was free. He swam away from the defeated creatures and saw another Zora wielding his blade. Evan had saved him a third time. "You just can't stay away from seaweed, can you?" He bobbed in the water, golden blade held at the ready, and somehow, despite it all, he smiled. Link looked at Evan's bare chest. The black mark had darkened and spread even there.
How are you swimming and fighting?
Link asked. "The all-night mask bought me some time," the masked salesman said. "And strength." He extended the gilded sword out to Link, who took it into Mikau's hands for the first time.
Can you die while you're transformed into Evan?
Probably, he said.
Then you have to get back up there,
Link said, but even as he spoke, he heard Gyorg roaring in the distance. He'd be upon them in moments.
"Let me handle this." "No,"
the sorcerer said.
"You're done fighting for me. You'll have my magic until my dying breath."
The giant fish emerged from the darkness, and the masked salesman leveled his Zora arms. Like Mikau's, Evan's fins shot out like boomerangs, honed on a target. They met their marks, cutting deep into Gyorg's sides. The beast roared, and Mikau and Evan scattered. Predictably, Gyorg swam for the one who'd hurt him last, and the masked salesman did his best to outswim the monster. But he didn't have to. While it was distracted, Link cut the monster with his sword and drew more blood. The two Zoras brutalized the beast. with sharp fins and sharp blades. It went between them thoughtlessly until it was battered and bloodied. Eventually, Gyorg retreated, wriggling its way through the murky water into darkness. Link panted beside the other false Zora and took advantage of the reprieve.
Do you think that's it?
He asked. No, the sorcerer said immediately. He was proven right. This time, Gyorg emerged from the dark water slowly, mouth open wider than ever before. Miniature fish, identical to Gyorg, swam from its mouth. Of course, Link thought. There were over a dozen, and though they were smaller, they were just as sharp and lethal. They swam together in a school, and Evan and Mikau quickly concluded the same strategy would not work. Fins and blades were not precise enough for smaller monsters, and somehow Gyorg kept its mouth open to give birth to a constant stream of deadly young. The two adventurers swam for the platform, but the spawn of Gyorg were faster. They nipped at Evan as he lagged behind Mikau, drawing blood from his already weakened form. Link fell back to protect his ally, battling the monsters away as best as he could. He became a shield for the masked salesman, who took the chance to break the water surface and climb to safety. Link lavished slash after slash upon the creatures, looking for an opening to escape himself. But if he turned his back even for a moment, those razor-sharp teeth would overwhelm him. Each sword strike became harder with the water's resistance, and once he thought he'd expended all his energy, the masked salesman saved him. Evan's arms reached into the water to pull him out, dragging him onto the platform. Link kicked away the singular mini Gyorg latched onto his leg, and then he scrambled to his feet on solid ground. Both he and Evan's arms and legs were covered in bright red welts. The masked salesman's Zora form was paler than ever, save for his chest. Evan's torso had darkened to become black as midnight, overwhelmed by Majora's magic. He seemed to struggle to draw breath, falling to his knees now that Link had been rescued.
I can't feel,
he said, stammering. The boy put his sword down and guided Evan away from the platform's edge.
I know, he said, but I have to kill that fish if we...
Suddenly, the entire platform tilted terribly. As the only one standing, Link was caught off guard, knocked from his feet and back toward the water. The masked salesman remained kneeling and stopped himself in time, watching with tattle as the hero plunged back into the water's dark depths. The swarm of tiny fish emerged to chase him again. Link, now unarmed, bolted through the water as fast as he could. Mikau's body remained barely ahead of them as he darted up and down through the water. He circled the platform, growing more exhausted with each passing second, but pausing to climb out would cost him precious seconds that could kill him, and the masked salesman likely had no more strength to save him again. The next time Link rounded the platform, Gyorg's great jaws opened to intercept him. The boy barely managed to stop himself from flying right into the beast's throat. He diverted at the last second, scraping against Gyorg's side and earning himself a pair of deep gashes. Link winced, spiraling to a halt only for the school of killer fish to begin closing in on their prey. Link had no momentum to swim away from them in time, and Mikau's body was too battered to fight. So, Link let instinct take over. He removed his Zora mask with one hand and retrieved his hookshot with the other. He fired at Gyorg, and the chain rocketed through water like it wasn't there. It latched into the great beast's side and pulled Link along with it, narrowly pulling him away from the tiny fish. Gyorg tried to outswim the boy and weapon, but Link's hookshot would not come loose. Link clung to his weapon's handle, holding his breath now that he was no longer Mikau. He went along for the ride while Gyorg darted to and fro. The hook had stabbed the great fish deep, finally drawing blood from the Great Bay Temple's boss. Eventually, Gyorg twisted its body toward the platform, and Link took his chance. He pressed the button to release the hook and allowed the momentum to carry him out of the water. He rolled onto the platform yet again, panting as he caught his breath, and returned his hookshot to safety. Link examined the scene above water. The masked salesman was himself again, with Evan's mask in hand. The pool of blood had become a stream on the floor's blue surface, and Tattle still seemed too stunned to speak. Gyorg roared from beneath the water as its surface bubbled again. Link spotted his abandoned gilded sword and ran to retrieve it, but he slipped. On blood or water, he couldn't be sure. The boy face-planted, and he heard the great fish rise from behind him, mouth wide to end his life. Link could only cower as Gyorg's shadow fell over him. Somehow, the monster missed. Gyorg fell on the platform beside him, rather than on top of him, and landed with a mighty thud. Link froze, expecting a malicious trick or new attack, but the fish simply lay there, as if defeated. Link uncertainly stood, shocked by Gyorg's immense size now that it was on land. The beast twitched with some unseen ailment, and the boy looked to see the masked salesman had donned a new weapon. The mask of truth. The sorcerer held himself up to kneel, keeping his mask's singular red eye leveled at the fish's face. Link rounded Gyorg's body to see its face. It seemed magically compelled to stare into the mask's golden iris. Just like the Re-Dead mask, the hero thought. Gyorg had made the lethal mistake of making eye contact with the strange facepiece, ending its lunge mid-flight. Gyorg's green eyes dilated wildly as it spasmed like a beached whale. Its twitching worsened until it brutalized its own body against the metal floor, slamming and twisting itself into a bloody mess. Foam bubbled at Gyorg's mouth as it shrieked, clearly losing all sanity as the mask of truth ravaged its thoughts. The masked salesman faltered, almost falling over from the effort of kneeling. Link decided to finish the job himself, running to retrieve his sword. Soon, he held his golden blade high over Gyorg's twitching face and plunged it into the fish's head. The foaming stopped, and the giant beast gave one last lurch as it became still. Link removed his sword and backed away, still panting. He almost slipped again on the gore running over the platform, a mix of Mikau's, Evan's, the masked salesman's, and now Gyorg's.
We did it,
Link said. The masked salesman collapsed behind him, and Link pushed away their victory to run to his side.
We did it,
The sorcerer said faintly. He removed the mask of truth, smiling despite his pallor and darkly ringed eyes. He quickly put the all-night mask back on before consciousness slipped away. A familiar hissing noise came from Gyorg's corpse. Link, Tattle, and the masked salesman watched as its body flaked away into black smoke, much as Odalwa's had. The entire mass of dead fish was soon gone, save for its face. Gyorg's terrifying visage remained on its side, its green eyes now blank and wooden. The foam once dripping from its dead teeth faded with all the rest. Then, a blue light flowered around Gyorg's remains, promising a way out. A white flash soon followed, washing over them all and, based on Link's experience, all of Great Bay. Finally, the seaside curse had been ended. When the white light vanished, only Gyorg's mask and its shell of blue magic remained. The masked salesman hardly seemed to process the confusing array of lights. Instead, he lifted his robe to see his chest. It was now scorched, entirely black, as if a great fire had ravaged him. He quickly covered his injury again, clearly terrified even with the all-night mask hiding his face. The boy remembered laying waste to the masked salesman beneath the clock tower. He'd left him in a similar state then. But this time, it's not my fault, Link thought. Or is it? He'd chosen to let the pirate leader live, and she'd survived only to follow them and take another life. I should have killed her, Link thought. There's no place for mercy in Termina. The thought chilled his blood, even as he realized letting the masked salesman live had been an act of mercy too.
I'm not sure what to do.
The masked salesman said, trembling. He shook with such profound weakness. The all-night mask was all that kept him tethered to the living. Link wasn't sure what to say. He remained knelt at his ally's side and turned to Tattle. His fairy remained silent too, caught somewhere between shock, exhaustion, and grief. Are you okay? He asked. Tattle's expression of stone didn't change.
I'll be fine. Let's get him to Clocktown.
Link nodded. I'm going to have to carry you, he said to the sorcerer. He could become Darmani, though his Goron form was still feverish, and now Mikau was similarly battered by Gyorg's army of babyfish. He'd have to manage as a boy half the masked salesman's size. Link succeeded, picking up the masked salesman's lanky, broken body.
We're gonna take you to the clock tower. Then we'll go back to Hyrule and get more medicine.
He paused before making his way toward Gyorg's remains.
Everything's gonna be fine. We haven't lost yet.